capturing that small drogue chute. I love the fact that they get the canopy of the parachute to collapse by pulling on that drogue so that they're not fighting the wind. That means that a high wind day may not be the end of business for Rocketlab doing a recovery. But that's something else. Reusability at low cost. It'll be very, very cool the first time they do that with a live launch. But it's proven, and they'll be going for it, I believe, sometime near the end of this year. It'll be really, really awesome to see Rocketlab fire a payload into orbit and get their booster back. So we're going to wait until Rocketlab goes live here. They say they're live in 35 minutes and 36 seconds, so that's a little bit earlier than we anticipated. What we will do is we will talk about space news for a minute. I have rebuilt the space news feed that I used prior to kind of spinning BOSA down last year. One of the things that Dustin was interested in is something I posted the other day, and I'll see if I can get down to that that article. But they're doing the initial solid rocket booster tests for SLS, targeting an SLS launch next year, which is only 5 or 6 years behind schedule. SLS being the Space Launch System from NASA that is going to put the Orion capsule into orbit. So this first article is just Falcon 9 taking off last week. This was the GPS-5 launch that we watched actually earlier in this week. I believe it was Tuesday. They put the third GPS Gen 3 satellite in orbit, parked it. It is actually still on its way there because of the height that it has to get to. But it was the last launch in June for SpaceX, who now has the potential for a 4-launch July. We'll see if they pull that off. So this is the launch we're watching today. Rocketlab turning around their pads and everything quickly since we did Don't Stop Me Now. You're welcome, Fish, if you're still lurking. Don't Stop Me Now was the last launch that Rocketlab did. It was very early in the morning. We did watch it here on the stream. But the rapid turnaround of the pad is what's the talk here. That is what the that is what the bottom, by the way, of the Electron looks like. That is the Rutherford engines that we talk about whenever we talk about their launch platform. So that's today. That's in 52 minutes. This is one of the best pictures ever taken of ISS from the ground. You can even see the Canada arm. He took it, this guy, Thierry Legault, took it as the ISS was transiting the sun, which means, effectively, here's the sun, and as ISS crossed it and put a shadow of it onto the sun, he took a photograph of it. And it's a really detailed photo, basically, of the shadow of the ISS, or the ISS projecting itself as a shadow onto the sun. And to be able to see, there's Crew Dragon sticking out right there, and there is the Canada arm sticking out right there. And it's a really, really cool photo. That is a sponsored ad, live coverage. Help the pandemic change NASA. We're not going to go there yet. This one is relevant because we watched last year, those of you who were here last year when we watched it, Arianespace and that very unique small sat payload deployment mechanism that they developed. They put OneWeb satellites into orbit. OneWeb is a constellation, or was a constellation competitor for Starlink. And what they did is they bet high on debt and didn't get a lot of investment, so they filed for bankruptcy earlier this year. Now the UK government has bought them. OneWeb is actually government property. The satellites that are in orbit belong to the UK government now. So it's a weird buy for sure, because it's not like those satellites were deployed with the idea of covering the United Kingdom in mind. That's not where they sit. So we'll see why the UK wanted to buy OneWeb, but they bought them. They also bought them with Bharti Global, which is an Indian company, but it was a joint purchase, so there's basically a private owner and a public owner there. We'll see what happens as OneWeb's future unfolds moving forward. But it is an update to the ongoing saga of OneWeb now that OneWeb has basically been rescued from bankruptcy. But they haven't deployed any more satellites since that initial launch last year, so they are way behind in terms of being an internet constellation from space. Starlink's way ahead, and Starlink has the capital of SpaceX behind it. You know, when you have a launch company that's paying for Starlink. Starlink is not a profitable entity for SpaceX yet. SpaceX makes money by delivering, payloads to orbit. Even if they put the payload on the back of a Starlink launch, there's been several ride shares this year for Starlink as well. But it's just OneWeb. Well, I think OneWeb was probably a little bit ahead of its time. Like, there was a lot of venture capital that went into it. There was a lot of investment, and then there just weren't customers, but they kept spending money, and that's a guaranteed way to end up bankrupt at some point. So let's see. Perfume captures smell of outer space. Nah. This one's funny. Designing a better toilet for the ISS. They're actually getting a new ISS toilet here this year, I think. The new commode is on its way to the ISS, but NASA is trying to get developers to work on making a better space toilet for Artemis. They want companies to buy into that. It's a funny article. This is the current toilet on board the ISS, if we can make that any bigger for you guys. That's the current toilet on the ISS. It's an interesting little area. It's in the Zaveda model. I can't ever pronounce it. The Vedza module. Let's see here. What else is going on? Yep. That one is going to wait until they actually know what the hell happened. This one's pretty cool. That is the Korolev crater in Mars. On Mars. There was a really high-res photo of it taken recently. There is the photo as large as I can make it. Hide this toolbar, actually. Everybody's so talkative today. This is the Long March. We don't get to see. It was a Chinese launch. It happened earlier this week, I believe, Wednesday night. But the Gaofen multi-mode launch it's a Long March is the Japanese Space Agency's rocket. 4B is the block. Gaofen is the satellite, and it was a multi-mode satellite that launched. We don't have a whole lot of information about it, nor do we get any great photos of it. There's no live streams of Chinese launches, but this did happen this week. There are bootleg streams, basically people with iPhones that are sitting, or whatever the equivalent is, sitting at the fence, but those streams just get killed, and that content gets just destroyed by the Chinese government before it ever really makes it anywhere. Every once in a while one makes it out, but it's a shame because it would be interesting to see. Like, you can see the rocket here lifting off. It's a very interestingly colored and designed rocket. Long March, I don't know anything about it because they don't produce any information for the public about it. But Long March 4B took off this week with a brand new satellite. Let's see. Now we already know about that. Relativity. Iridium is a satellite type. They're a company, and Relativity Space One, the ability to launch them. They're not the biggest one. The big thing there is that Iridium satellites had been previously launched in bulk, a lot of them on Falcon 9s, and now this new space startup, this new space delivery service, got the contract for the next round of Iridiums. There is one thing in here that I wanted to talk about. Nope. Where are you? Nope. There's the article for Dustin. Jacobs begins SLS booster build-up for Artemis 1. Artemis 1 will be the first flight of SLS with the Orion capsule. It will be unmanned. Hey, Dustin's back.
I said, hey.
So this is the connection of the two elements that make up the right-hand aft booster of SLS. There are 4 boosters in terms of it's a rocket with 1, 2, 3, 4 around it. This is the mating of the two components that make up that right aft booster, and they'll make the 4 of them. Most people also don't know that the SLS main vehicle uses the old shuttle engines. So it'll be interesting to see what the cost is when they no longer have the old shuttle engines to repurpose. But they actually took the old shuttle engines off of the landers, of the orbiters, and are using them for SLS, which I think is really backwards. They didn't design a new engine. But Dustin got really excited when he saw this article when I posted it to Twitter, because it was like SLS next year. And you know how I feel about anything that says SLS with any kind of timestamp on it. Well, I'll believe it when I see it. SLS is the only way we're going to get Artemis to the moon, and it has never flown. And it's 2020, and they say they want to be there by 2024. We'll see if that happens. Where was the other thing? No. This one, the Vega launch. We've talked about Arianespace and the Vega launch so many times in the last month, because we've said, yeah, tonight's the night we're going to watch Vega take off from French Guiana, and then it's been scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed. They have scrubbed it for 7 weeks due to the weather, is what the public release says. You can't have a weather delay of 7 weeks. You can have a weather delay of a couple days maybe, but the weather does not delay launches by weeks. But what's happened here is there are 53 satellites on board this thing, and because of the amount of time it's taken to get this launch going, they actually have to take the vehicle itself and charge its batteries. And they also have to charge the batteries of the onboard satellites, because there's no solar panels extended, right? The batteries on board are dying. So they're going to have to demate the entire payload from the fairing. Everything has to come off, and they have to recharge everything. So
Roger roll, Discovery.
Vega's not going to launch for like another 7 weeks. Well, 6.5 weeks at this point. So don't look for Vega legitimately to be on the calendar again until mid to late August. But that is what's going on. So for those of you not familiar with Vega's history, last year Vega exploded. It had a paid-for payload that was insured on board, and it blew up during launch. And so this is the Vega SMS POC, which is a proof of concept, basically saying, hey, we fixed our problems, but they actually have a paid-for payload on it again. And they've been trying to get this thing launched all year. The pandemic hit and shut down launch operations in French Guiana, and then they were like, okay, we're good to go. Let's get launch operations going again. And they have just been hammered by the weather down there. That's north coast of South America, and it's hurricane season, and the winds have just not cooperated. And Vega's not a big rocket. You have to think of Vega in the same terms you think of Electron. It's a smaller launch vehicle. It's not Falcon 9. Definitely not, it's not ULA or Falcon Heavy. It's a smaller vehicle, so the wind will play hell with it, and they can't. Yeah, it's more like just the weather, man. I don't doubt it's gonna fly and it's gonna do well, but it's been this kind of thing where it's like you don't know, and it's gonna be an interesting launch to watch, because the last time it blew up. So we'll see. I definitely want to see the launch when it happens. If it's going to be, it should be, because I think it's just 1 hour ahead of Eastern time. I think it should be generally watchable. That launch window hasn't moved too much. It sits there. Yeah, not the kind of fire. I don't want any fireworks. Fireworks actually make my hair stand up on. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it tonight, but yeah, we don't want to see 53 satellites go up in flames on a bad rocket launch. I want to see it succeed, but it's just an interesting launch because who knows what's going to happen. So what else? What else? What else? Don't forget, if you have a telescope this weekend, go type up penumbral lunar eclipse because it's happening tonight into tomorrow at like midnight to 2 a.m. There will be effectively what will happen is this. The flight of the moon will go through Earth's umbra, which means we will cast a shadow onto the moon with relative to the sun. And it's a chance if you have instruments, meaning you won't be able to really see it without some sort of magnification instrument because it's going to be too dark for naked eye ambient light on Earth. So if you have a telescope, this is happening tonight. If you have really high power binoculars, you'll probably pull this off too. But yeah, Saturday night, July 4th, 12:30 a.m. Eastern time, and at its deepest, the moon will only be immersed about 35% into the outer penumbral shadows, this larger shadow that the Earth's atmosphere, or the Earth's, yeah, I guess it's the Earth's atmosphere, casts. So you'll see some off-color shading of the moon due to that, just because the light's not hitting it. Like, we're not going to completely eclipse the moon or anything like that. It's not a total lunar eclipse or anything, but it's what they call the moose moon because of where it's also called the harvest. No, it's not the harvest moon. It's the hay. I think it's the hay moon. It's got like 12 names, but anyway, if you're interested in observing the moon tonight, you will see it behaving a little bit differently than the way you are used to seeing it. Close that window here. There was one other article in here I wanted to talk about. No. What is the launch today sending up? The launch today, if you want to see that, we could talk about that. So today's launch is 7 satellites. 5 of them are the same satellite. There is where is that list? I had that list, and then I lost that list. I swear I had that list somewhere. That's not it. What the heck is that? Oh, that was me looking up stuff in Deep Rock Galactic yesterday. Well, let me find it for you, Dustin. Space. Okay. So here is Pixar Didn't Happen. Coming over to the screen for you. The payload is CESat-1B, 5 SuperDove Flock 4E satellites, and a Faraday I 6U. 6U stands for microsat or small sat. That's how many units or cubes make up that satellite. But if we want to know what each of those is, we'll come over here and have a look. I don't have this memorized at all because this got sprung on me a day early. So, the CESat-1B. Is an experimental Earth-observing microsatellite developed by Canon Electronics. 50G class satellite is built on a 50 centimeter by 50 centimeter by 70 centimeter structure built by Axel Space. It features an optical imaging system based on a 40 centimeter diameter Cassegrainian telescope. Cassegrainian is an elliptical telescope. With a 3,720 millimeter focal length, which is amazing, and a detector based on an EOS 5D Mark III camera with 5760 by 3840 pixels. Its imaging provides a 1 meter ground resolution from a 600 kilometer orbit. We're going to 500 kilometers today. With a 6 kilometer by 4 kilometer frame size. So it's a big picture of really high resolution down to 1 meter as long as you're within 600 kilometer circular orbit. That's what that first satellite is. Stop, thief! The second one is SuperDove Flock 4E. So let's go find out what that is. Flock 1. So it's going to be the same type of satellite. Flock is an Earth-observing constellation built and maintained by Planetlab. So its planet consists of numerous triple CubeSats. Yep, batch of 5. There it is. Will be launched. So this is what they look like right here. Really, really tiny Earth observation satellites that are run by Planet, and there'll be 5 of them on this today. 1 freaking meter. Yep. How often are launches pushed up? Not very often at all, Manny. But ironically, there may be 2 that are pushed up this month. The first one is this one, which no one was expecting, except for the weather. New Zealand is going to turn bad during the week, and I believe they want to get this off the ground. It is nuts. And then the other one is Perseverance. The new Mars rover is due to launch at the end of the month. Tori Bruno announced that the Centaur the Centaur upper stage, which is going to take it there, it had a problem, caused it to be shifted back in the calendar, and then they resolved the problem, I guess, more easily and quickly than they thought they were going to, and so the opportunity to launch sooner or potentially move that window up is there. They might actually go to Mars earlier, and the reason is because they have to be mindful of the Mars rendezvous window. Mars is not always in the same place relative to Earth, so they have to launch within a certain window of time in order to optimize the fuel and everything to get there. So they will be launching Perseverance in July. It was supposed to be, I think, the 20th. Don't quote me on that, of July. But that date's in flux now because they might actually move that up. So it's not common at all for, basically, they said that rocket launches don't go left. They don't go left on the calendar. They tend to go right on the calendar. But we had this one today move up, and then we have another one that may move up. And to have that twice in a month is really weird. So the last thing. Let's look at the Faraday series here for Dustin, because you asked what else is on here. Also, you guys can type next launch, ! Next launch in chat, and you can see what the next launch is and how to get a link to information on it. I've added that for you guys. Go. So this is a Faraday 1. Is there a pics of the new Mars rover? Yes. So that's the launch we're getting ready to go for right now. There is information at Rocket Launch Live for info, or if you want to bring the stream up on your own. This command will always work in my channel because Eddie's always on. So if you ever want to know when the next rocket launch, that is from a basically non-Chinese, non-Indian provider, because those launches don't ever have great streams. If I'm not going to be able to stream something, but you're still looking for the information on a launch, you can now come here, enter that command, and you can get that link to where you can go watch it and information about the launch. This is Faraday 1. It is a British 6U CubeSat. It holds experiments. And that's pretty much all you're going to get about. It's basically it's a 6U housing for experiments in space. But that's what she looks like. Dustin is refreshing because he's way behind, and that's how long it took. So, Perseverance's rover. You want to see what Perseverance looks like? This is your guy. Perseverance was actually named by a civilian who, Mr. Goo. That's indeed what it is, Yuming. It's Mr. Goo. This is Perseverance. Launch window is July 30th to April 15th, 2020. That actually is slipping forward. That launch window isn't accurate. Mars needs to update that. They can launch as early as the 20th or earlier. It will land on Mars, planned landing February 18th, 2021. So it's one of those things where it's like, we're going to launch this thing this summer, and then we're going to keep our eye on where the mission to deliver Perseverance is, and then we're going to cross our fingers it's not another bearer sheet, and I hope it's not, but it's hit or miss. I mean, landing something on Mars from this far away remotely, to have it run around for a while. But Perseverance was named by just a person who entered the contest to name it. The Jezero crater, we looked at a big high-res photo of it earlier in going through all this news. That's where this guy is going. And it's also taking the helicopter. If you guys have never seen the helicopter that may potentially, well, not may potentially, it was really called Rover 2020. If you guys have never seen the Mars rover helicopter, let's have a look at that real quick. Sending 4K photos back to Earth. Yep. Dustin, do you remember why this is problematic? So Perseverance has a little buddy. That's the issue. Much thinner atmosphere. But that thing is it's going up this month. That little helicopter on board Perseverance. Wind and atmosphere. Those are the problems. They can simulate it all they want. They don't know how well it's going to fly. But if it does work, it's going to be amazing to get. I'll take bets on flying or not flying. Yep. It's an interesting thing. Here's what... This is a much longer video that we don't have time for. But we'll come back to this, actually. We'll come back to this video in the future when we talk about this thing at launch. So what I'll do is I will mark that here. It's so Amazon can drone ship something to a Martian. I don't think that's why they're doing it, Dustin. So we are about 9 minutes away from the live stream here. I am going to stand up before the launch. I would suggest you do the same. We will go to the BRB screen, get a drink, walk around, stretch your legs, go to the bathroom, all that stuff. You are 28 minutes, 35 seconds from launch, 9 minutes, 35 seconds from the live stream going live. We'll get the clock synced up when they bring theirs up. And we'll watch, hopefully, Rocketlab put Pics didn't happen into orbit today. Well, at least its payload. For those of you that don't know what the patch looks like, it is that guy up there. I think it's a really fitting patch. We can actually look at the patch real quick before we go BRB. I love the mission patch. I think it's very fitting for a mission that is all about photo satellites for the most part. There's one that's not, but most of them, 6 of the 7, are taking pictures of Earth. So I love the use of the photo markers on the patch. I'm gonna go. But anyway, we'll put it back over here on a Rocketlab in case they go live early, which I don't think they will. I'll be right back. Again, get up, walk around, all that stuff, and we'll hopefully see a rocket launch take off here in the next half hour. But I'll be right back.
My lord? Yo.
All right. So I'm back. Hopefully you are either still walking around or sat back down. Hopefully you stretched your legs. So one thing I'm going to do right now is turn off the GIFs because we're getting close to a launch. So pause that. Pause that for 2 hours. Launch time. I just don't want someone playing a GIF and having it cover the screen. Pause those. You're on the big screen now. Well, welcome in, Yomega's family. So now that you're watching, what we're watching today is Pics or It Didn't Happen. That is the name of the mission. It's by Rocketlab, which is a US/New Zealand owned private space launch company. They're putting 7 satellites into orbit today from New Zealand. And 6 of those are Earth observation satellites. So they are taking pictures of the Earth for different purposes. So hence the patch, which you see in the upper right-hand side of your screen, is a neatly designed photo-inspired patch, which we will acquire. Speaking of that, we did get the patch for Don't Stop Me Now. For those of you that missed it yesterday, it did take some pictures of that. So let me grab a really goofy photo of myself real quick, and we'll go to the big screen. This is the Don't Stop Me Now patch. It came in yesterday, and it went into the board right here. It is up there right now behind me. And assuming that we watch this one today, we will also pick up Pics or It Didn't Happen, which I'm happy about. That patch is probably the highest quality space patch I've ever owned. It is so well made. I was extremely pleased with what Rocketlab did. So we have about 22 minutes until launch, 22 minutes, 30 seconds till launch. We are waiting for Rocketlab to take their live stream live here. I'm going to go ahead and take some of my windows back to the other side so I can actually look at information without cluttering up your screen. That one can close. I need that one over there. I don't need that one. That one can be off now. That Dragon patch? You're talking about the JAXA patch for the first operational Crew Dragon. Dustin's referring to this patch. This is JAXA's patch for the first Crew Dragon mission after DM2 is over with. DM2 is currently attached to the space station. It's called Crew Endeavor is what they're calling it right now. They've gone through like 6 different variations of the verbiage, but when they actually come back, the purpose of the mission is actually to certify the craft for launch using, NASA astronauts. That's the whole purpose of the test, even though Bob Behnken has been out on 2 spacewalks to replace batteries with Chris Cassidy while he's been up there with Expedition 63. So when this launches, this patch will be the JAXA version, the Japanese Space Agency's version of the mission patch. You can see on it, it's really cool. It's got a tribute paid to all 4 prior U.S. crewed launch platforms: the Shuttle, Apollo, Gemini, and Mercury. So it will be interesting to see if that patch is acquirable. I don't think I will be able to, but we'll definitely get the first certified NASA patch for Crew Dragon, because that will be a lot easier to get. But beyond that, just setting things up so I can keep track of what's going on with the launch here, because I usually have all that information off to my right-hand side. The stream of the rocket launch usually sits off to my left-hand side, and then we watch me and you and everything in front of me. But everything still looks go for launch. There is no weather indicator of a problem right now. This is actually a cool picture, and I'll bring this up for you guys to look at. The anatomy of a mission patch. The circular orbit for this mission, 500 kilometers. -3, the number of seconds in the countdown to lift off when the 9 Rutherford engines ignite. So all this stuff that's in this patch to make it look like a film slide actually has meaning. How many payloads, the approximate number of seconds before Electron reaches orbit, and then this looks like a film slide. I love the design of the patch. I really hope it launches, because I really like to own this patch. But it was an interest. This is actually produced by Rocketlab. This is this slide. It's really cool to see the information they put out on it. Nothing else being reported. With 19 minutes to go to launch, we're waiting for Rocketlab to pick up their live stream. I imagine that's going to be the next minute or so. The exact time of launch today is 5:19:36. I doubt we are in sync with them, but we will try. So that is countdown to 5:19:36 Eastern Time, or 9:19 a.m. local time. The rocket is now vertical at Launch Complex 1, and kerosene and LOX, which is liquid oxygen, they're two fuels that mix, and when they mix, they combust. That's called a hypergolic reaction. Engines use a reaction chamber to create that, and then produce the thrust out of the nozzle. That's how rocket launches work. That fuel is being put into the rocket right now. We get ready for them to go live. So if you guys have questions, please feel free to ask. Omega's family, if you have any questions, please feel free to relay them through Omega. I'll be happy to answer anything that I can, or find the answer if I don't know, to the best of my ability. The whole idea here is to promote the notion that science is important, to show you that there are people out there who enjoy this. So if a kid rolls through here and says, oh look, there are adults that really think space and science is cool, and what's not cool really about this? You know, a grown person has made a mission control using a green screen that sits behind them back here because he loves space and wants to share that love with everyone else that's out there who may enjoy the idea of a rocket taking off or whatever. But just hopefully you guys enjoy what is presented here, enjoy the information, and keep doing it as long as you are having fun partaking in it. Yep. So they're getting ready. I would say Rocketlab says they'll go live approximately 15 minutes prior to launch, so probably 3 more minutes. Nothing else? Gotta try to fill the time then. I'm reading through the stuff that they're posting from the mission site right now. This is a cool picture of the Canon satellite that we talked about earlier. The one that can do the 1 meter resolution, Dustin. That's your guy. It's actually all the payloads right here. These 5.
Rise up and join the fight.
These 5 guys are on the bottom. Those are your planet Earth observation satellites. This big boy here is your Canon, the main payload of the mission. So these are the 5 Super Doves down here, and this is your CESat-1B at the top. So Planet is a San Francisco-based company. They operate a fleet of over 120 Earth observation satellites, and they're adding 5 to that today. Looks like amps. And what they do is they provide coverage of the Earth's landmass. They provide information on how the Earth's landmass shifts to businesses and governments. So things like beach erosion would be something that Planet does. Not just not just waterfront type stuff. They do observation of geography all across the world, not just water facing features. But that's an example of what their mission could be used for. I actually saw some photos of some planet photography. It's pretty decent resolution. It's nothing. It's not the 1 meter you're going to get from that Canon satellite, but the work they do is super useful. It's obviously the sort of company that produces data that people will pay for because it's useful data. And the other thing is that that Faraday. Yep. So the Faraday line, yeah, again, will hold multiple tiny scientific payloads from companies that pay to get on board. So what's interesting is Faraday is a satellite maker, or Faraday is the name of a platform that is made by, who's the manufacturer of Faraday? In Space Missions is who makes Faraday. And In Space is selling, hey, they're saying, hey, we're going to sell you space on our 6U Faraday for whatever you want. It's powered platform in space. What do you need? It can communicate back down there to provide you with information. And then they can integrate an experimental payload in that, and that's the paying customer, right? They say, okay, we'll pay In Space Systems to put that payload on board. And then Faraday goes and finds a launch provider. In this case, it's Rocketlab, and says, get my payload to this orbit for this customer or series of customers. And that's what that Faraday satellite is. So it's an interesting chain where In Space Systems is procuring customers for their vehicle, which they then have to find a launch provider for their vehicle somewhere else. They wouldn't put one Faraday satellite. They wouldn't put one Faraday satellite on here because it wouldn't be enough. But here we go. Rocket Lab starting up their presentation with T-minus 14:35 to go. And we'll keep our eyes on weather and everything else as we get ready to watch this smallish but really cool rocket platform take off in about 14 minutes. Again, it's 9:05 a.m. in New Zealand at Launch Complex 1A. And thanks for hanging out as we get ready to watch another launch.
You will endure this loss and learn from it.
Go ahead and turn Eddie down as we roll up to launch so that he's not so audible. Hopefully you found the information on the payloads informative. I hope you're excited about Perseverance. Perseverance is a really cool mission. I posted a graphic a while back that showed all of the different vehicles that have made it to Mars, and it's way more than you think it is. Dustin was actually talking to me about how he didn't realize there were that many things that had gone to Mars or crashed into Mars. And it'd be really cool to see a modern rover hit Mars. There we go, they cut their audio. So this is Launch Complex 1A. It's a beautiful, beautiful launch complex. th flight of Electron since its debut 3 years ago. There's your mission batch.
Good morning and welcome to yet another Electron launch. My name is Max Muncy.
Whoa, we got echo coming in from somewhere. I think I know where though. Hold on.
It's currently 9:06 a.m.
Let me get rid of that.
But if you're watching from the US,
I'm pretty sure I know where that's coming in from.
what you see on your screens is a live view of Electron as it
So let me do that, and let me do
from Rocketlab Launch Complex.
properties and
Dubbed this mission Pics
shut down source and not view.
This is a special
There
payloads on board this
we
flight.
go.
This is a special one as it will be Rocketlab's lucky number 13.
Nope, we're still echoing. So let me just kill this because I know that's the thing I added today.
Through the night to prepare for liftoff this time. Payload integration took place in the clean rooms at LC1 in the days leading
There
up
we
to
go.
this mission before Electron was rolled out from the hangar down the 100
Alrighty.
runway to the pad. Dealing with
Sorry about that.
R1 in liquid oxygen has been completed, and coming up shortly, our launch director.
Hey, I'm right in front of the guy. Let's do this.
Will confirm that the vehicle, satellites, weather, and range are all green for launch.
Let me do this and move myself out of the way down here, yeah?
steadfast supporter.
You don't need to see the waving hands.
Okay, and all stations. Currently proceeding
There we
with
go.
the go-no-go sequence. Stage, there you go.
It's super duper
Yep,
quiet.
stages go.
Avionics.
Avionics is go.
We turn you up then.
AFTS is go.
GNC.
Let me know when you get to a good audio level. But I don't want to go off a side because he's always the one that is like more deaf than everyone else.
RF is go.
T1.
T1 is go.
No offense.
GC.
Every time you tell me you can't hear stuff, everyone else says they can.
BLS is go.
And also bear in mind they're whispering.
RSL is go.
Alright.
Mid.
Well, I have it almost up to match my mic voice at this point.
Let's go.
LD sub.
LD subs go.
And executive.
Executive is go for launch.
All stations LD on mission. Go-no-go sequence.
Is that audible now? They're not talking now.
Today's launch is headed to a circular 500-kilometer low Earth orbit at a 97-degree inclination and is carrying 7 satellites on board Electron.
How about now?
Our mission partners include Canon Electronics Incorporated,
Okay, good.
whose payload was procured by Spaceflight. We have several small sats from Planet, which operates the world's largest Earth observation constellation. And finally, we have In-Space Missions, a British small mission management company. Canon Electronics Spacecraft.
I think that's
called
them,
CESat-1B,
because they
its
are.
objective is to test
I have it
the
maxed on YouTube,
technology they've developed ahead of producing
and they have
the
1 decibel below me.
This launch will be the second time Electron has ferried satellites to space.
He's not as
from
bad
Earth
as the
to
SpaceX people.
Planet launched their Dove spacecraft on board Rocketlab.
But I can turn him up a little bit more.
The still testing mission back in 2018.
Okay, now they're matched
This
on
time,
me.
Electron will carry 5 of Planet's latest generation satellites to space, the Super Doves, where they will join the remainder of the flock already in orbit. The final payload for this mission is the Faraday 1 6U CubeSat from In-Space Missions, which is carrying experiments from 7 of their customers as part of the company's hosted payload service.
Yeah, I just think it's
Faraday
low
1 is the
because
first
I have
series of satellites from In-Space
I have them up
Missions
pretty
to
loud.
provide services
I have my
for
desktop audio
organizations
maxed. Let me check one more thing here for you guys.
including Airbus
There
Defence and
might be a
Space,
reason.
Lacuna Space, the Space Environment Research Center in Canberra.
How
and
about that?
These customers are testing a range of technology concepts from 360-degree optical video imaging to radio frequency spectrum monitoring. Each of these 7 payloads will be delivered to precise orbital insertions by Electron's 3rd stage, which is called the Kick stage, and that will fire its Curie propulsion system approximately 50 minutes into flight after separating from the 2nd stage. Our broadcast will end just after separation of the Kick stage, so we won't be showing payload deployment. Check in on Rocketlab's social media channels for confirmation of deployment in about an
Yep.
hour's
So
time.
I will post it
So here at Rocketlab,
later
we're no
on
stranger to having a little
if the
bit of
payload
fun with
deploy
our
is
mission
good
name,
because they're not planning on
including
streaming
that
that.
tradition today. The name Pics or It Didn't Happen makes reference to the payloads on board, all of which are Earth imaging small sats.
Oh, so the
Attachments
Faraday is
on
also
the
an Earth
viewfinder
imaging
of the
experiment
camera
this
or
time.
the
Okay.
settings around the border are linked to various aspects of the flight. The 540 on the far left is the approximate number of seconds before Electron reaches orbit. We've got 7 payloads on board the vehicle. -3 is the number of seconds into the countdown when Electron's 9 Rutherford engines on stage 1 ignite. And 500 is the number of kilometers above the Earth's surface this mission is targeting for a circular orbit. Our patches are applied to each fairing before launch, so if you look closely, you should be able to make it out.
I do love how much pride Rocketlab puts into their mission patches.
Stage 1 and Stage 2 high voltage pump lips have passed and engines are ready.
Stage 1 and Stage 2 high voltage batteries ready for flight. Avionics terminal checks complete.
So you're the one that always
All
says
avionics on stage,
that
thank you.
stuff's like inaudible, and then usually today's an exception. But usually people come right after you and say, "I hear it just fine." That's the only reason it's
GCO
not.
on mission.
I always have to take
All day.
your call out of audio with a grain of
Sequence
salt because
47
of that.
Pad ready for launch. Sequence
It's nothing
47 in order.
personal. So we talked about this whenever we did ZPS3 earlier this week. We talked about the strongback, and that's just what it's called at this point. But you see it right there. Well, not
So some
not
of my
now.
favorite views of our launch site, showcasing the Mahia
But
Peninsula.
the
In
strongback
left
on
foreground, you should be able
Falcon
to
9
see
only
the
comes
road
back a
leading
little bit,
down to the launch
right?
facility. In the
Strongback
background,
on
you have
Electrons
Port
to come back a
This
bunch.
view is roughly 3 kilometers
Pay attention to
away
that as they
from
get closer
Rocketlab
to
Range Control.
to
Today's
vehicle
flight will be
control.
Electron's
There are
13th
4
overall launch,
clamps
second
on the
since
ground for
COVID-19
Electron that hold it
restrictions
down as
ended
well.
in
Those are the last things that
Flight
released prior to
13 also
launch.
marks our fastest turnaround time between launches, as it was only 3 weeks ago that Electron launched from this same pad at Launch Complex 1, carrying an educational smallsat for NASA, a technology demo for the University of New South Wales, and 3 payloads for the National Reconnaissance Office. While the launch team were preparing the Flight 12 vehicle
That's speak for
liftoff,
top
our
secret.
vehicle integration
And
team at the
ROs.
Auckland Production Complex were
U.S.
prepping the
National
first
Reconnaissance
stage of
Office.
Flight 13 for shipment down to Mahia.
There's a good scaling of Electron. There's people standing next to it to get a good notion of how small these are in comparison to other rockets you've watched take off. I'll back it off now that they're playing music. His voice is just low, that's what I thought. Hopefully that's better. Not deafening you guys. T-minus 5 minutes, 15 seconds mark. But that's a great video to show the internal, like what they're working on.
In recent years, we've been focusing heavily on building up rapid production and launch capabilities for our Electron
All right,
rocket.
we're back to
Right
level
now,
up
the
before I
team
dropped it down. So you,
will
again,
offer
we always talk about
factory
this, but you see
18
that
days,
plume
all in pursuit of our ultimate goal to launch
coming
Mercury
off
missions in
right
the
below
near
that
future.
black band. That is actually
Production
the
is only
distinct,
useful to pair
that's
with
the
rapid launch
separation point
capability,
between
but
the
we've got
first
that
stage
covered.
and the second stage, or what they're calling the
Rocketlab's
kick
privately
stage.
owned and operated Launch Complex 1 is
That
able to
plume of
support
gas
up
you
to
see coming off
120
is actually the
million
condensation of
A second launch
supercooled
pad is
liquid
currently
oxygen
under
as it hits the
construction at New
atmosphere.
Zealand site and will be
It's
online by the
instantaneously
end of 2020.
just
Our third
vaporizing
launch
it.
pad in the
And
United
that's what you
States is
see
located
that
at
that's
Rocketlab Launch
that's
Complex
normal.
2 on
They
Wallops
have to
Island,
continuously
Virginia.
keep topping
We'll be
off the
launching
tank
our
so it's
first
under
mission
pressure the
from
whole
BOSA
time.
before the end-
That's
before
why
the
you
end of the summer.
always see
It'll
those
be from
plumes
this
coming
same
off the
pad where
rocket.
We'll launch Electron to the moon for NASA's Capstone mission early next year.
Strongback is pulling back. You see,
These
there it
launch
is. You
pads
can
and
see it
flight
with Strongback
opportunities
coming
are all
back.
part of our vision to open access to space for small satellites and make convenient
Just the 4
frequent
clamps in the
deliveries
ground,
easy
holding it
easier
down
than
with
ever
4
before.
minutes and 8 seconds left
Right
until
now,
launch.
we're at T-minus 5 minutes and counting, and all systems are
Actually, let me
nominal
look
as we
at their
count down to
clock.
liftoff. If for any
They are
reason
at
we need to
4
scrub
minutes and
today's launch, we
48
have daily
seconds.
launch opportunities
So we're a
within
little
the
bit ahead
same
of the
time
clock
window in
here.
the days ahead. Now, you'll no doubt have heard that our
4:40.
team is working towards converting Electron
Mark.
into a reusable launch vehicle.
So we are
Our
about
chosen method utilizes a helicopter, which will catch the
Add
first stage from the sky as it descends underneath a parachute. We're not conducting
36
any
is
recovery testing
add
on today's mission, but work is continuing
16.
behind the scenes as the
Let's go
team
here
prepares for
and
the
see what
first
we
return
get.
of an Electron booster. It's something we're
clock.
really excited for and a huge step forward in our overall goal of making
more
frequent,
seconds.
reliable launch a reality.
24
We're
there.
targeting our
That's
17th
compensating for the
Electron launch
delay.
for the first attempt, and we're at flight 13 already, so we'll
We're
be
on
at
time
17
now.
in no
Our
time.
clock matches.
So with just 4 minutes left on the clock, Electron is moving into the final stage of the countdown. At T-minus 2 minutes, the rocket's internal flight computers will take over the countdown before Electron's
Range
9
is
rocket
green
engines ignite
at
T-minus 3
The
seconds.
launch facility in
So
New
we're going to
Zealand.
hand you over to the operators in mission control to listen in to the final moments before launch, and we'll check back in with you shortly after liftoff.
So let's see if I can get rid of this red bar here. That's really ugly. There we go. So you can kind of see their clock below me, 3:27, 26. So we skipped ahead. Why is the clock here not running? Still 27, I think, is the right time. About a second ahead. So I don't know what happened there. Oh, because I paused it. That's why. Close enough. We're close enough. It's off by less than a second.
This is LD on mission. From now on, there should be no red flags in your LCCs. Beacon, please confirm flight computer as goes green.
Electron
Oh, that's
rocket
good.
confirms itself ready for flight
Please
at
lock
T-minus
auto
3
sequence
minutes.
and confirm.
Auto sequence locked.
Stations LD on mission. We're currently go for auto sequence start at T-minus 2 minutes. And I can confirm LD is go for launch.
I believe their flight control handoff is just about a minute. I think it's like a minute 10. Auto sequence start should kick off now.
Vehicle is on internal power.
Yep. So it is no longer getting power from any umbilicals. It's operating us on internal batteries. Batteries power the electrical systems on board. There actually is a swap out mechanism, which you will hear called
Pressing
out
Lux.
during liftoff. Electron's onboard computer now has control of the vehicle.
Lux load is complete. System is in recirculation.
That is liquid oxygen load complete. I'll call them out a little bit more because I know they have their volume turned down for some reason on this, and I have them actually above me in terms of the actual audible range. T-minus 1 minute,
Gathering
Pressing
disabled.
Carol.
5 seconds. Engines are now pressurized for flight.
Stage 1 and stage 2 are pressed.
High flow engine purge enabled.
Man, those poor animals are about to be in for shock, I
Wind
think.
deluge is active.
T-minus 20 seconds.
Re-readying engines.
10,
Nah, they're not in a blast zone.
8, 7,
Smaller rocket.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
There goes the umbilical. She goes.
Stage 1
It
propulsion
did
is
take
on.
off running. Look how far away they are. Beautiful shot back down to Earth.
Discharge is nominal.
We're at T plus 45 seconds into flight, and we've had a successful liftoff from Pad A at Launch Complex 1.
Coming up on max
Next
Q.
up will be max Q, which is the point when the rocket is under the maximum amount of aerodynamic stress during its ascent.
Vehicle is supersonic. Approaching max Q.
Camera feed's a little stuttery. Max Q, maximum aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle, meaning that usually rockets throttle back,
Last through max Q.
and they're through max Q. They'll throttle back up. They throttle down to relieve the pressure on the vehicle. It's basically a
There's
matter
that
of
call from the
speed
team
plus
mission
where they are in the
control
atmosphere
from
that determines
Electron.
max Q.
Pass through max Q.
Pretty plume coming off the underside of that thing. So she is 3,000 kilometers per hour, and altitude is 24 kilometers right now, and climbing. And I will get myself out of your way so you can see that information.
Coming up are 3 events which will occur in close proximity.
AOS at Chatham
First,
Station.
the 9 Rutherford engines.
Acquisition
will
of
power
signal
down
is
on the
AOS
stage,
at
commonly
Chatham
known as
Station.
main engine cutoff.
Ground station that's helping
Before
coordinate the rocket
stage
launch.
1 and stage 2 separate. Then the
Stage two
vacuum
propulsion
optimized engine
is-
on stage
Oh
2 will
man,
ignite as
that
the
sucks,
engine
Shadow. At
continues
least you got
on.
to see it here. Thanks for hanging out with us too.
Entering stage 1 burnout detect mode.
Coming up on staging, you'll see the first stage cut away, the second stage take over. There is something loose up there. Look right in here. That is not usual.
And Miko confirmed.
Main engine cut off. There goes your first stage. So the problem just went away because it was on the first stage. Whatever that was that looked loose, it's gone. Stage 2 ignition, and there you can see it lighting up.
We've had a
That's
clean
T
stage
plus
1
2
and
minutes
stage 2
45
separation.
seconds, and the
Electron
second stage
continuing
engine
on
is now
nominal. You can
firing
see the nozzle
after
on that
separation.
second stage engine beginning to glow as it makes its way to orbit. And we're
We
now
come
at
up on
T plus
fairing
2
stage,
minutes, with fairing
or fairing
separation coming up in 2
separation.
seconds.
Fairing check.
Yeah, the last time it was a night launch. Actually, the last time was, I guess it was in the evening for you. Yeah. The Don't Stop Me Now launch. It was pretty. There's your fairing step. You can see the fairing breaking away.
And there goes the fairing. You've just seen it flying away from the vehicle there. The payloads are
How
now
quickly? Look at
exposed,
that
ready for
view.
the
Look at how high that little rocket got in
It's nominal.
poof, 128 kilometers, and it was less than 4 minutes. Crazy. Yep. Shroud deployment confirmed at 3 minutes 20
As you can see, we're
seconds.
continuing to climb at 9,500 kilometers per hour, and Electron is currently at 140 kilometers altitude, and it's above the Earth on its way to orbit. And one of the perks of the job, we've got an incredible view of the Earth below us.
And before Omega says, that looks pretty flat to me, Fix. Beautiful launch. You've got some time before the kick stage set. She's going to keep firing that engine for a while.
We're now 4 minutes into flight, and Electron is
It does.
beginning to
I
look
mean,
good.
you can see the
We've got a
curve,
couple of
but
boxes
it
left
does
to
look
tick off ahead of
flattish.
kick stage separation.
As you get
Those
higher in
being
altitude,
hot
that'll
swap
go
and
away.
second cutoff coming up shortly. Electron is soaring to space at a speed of 10,900 kilometers per hour.
11,000 kilometers per hour at 170 kilometers altitude and climbing. Remember, these things are going to 500 kilometers circular. And circular doesn't mean geosynchronous. That's a different thing. Geosynchronous satellite would actually have to be a lot higher. 25,000 or 22,500 miles above the Earth, roughly, for a geosync orbit.
Stage 2 propulsion is nominal.
Now in about 90 seconds time, Electron will perform its battery hot swap. The pumps on the Rutherford engine are powered by batteries, and once these have been depleted, we swap power over to a new battery, allowing us to save mass on the way to orbit.
Yep, they actually drop the batteries out of the craft for the same reason you would really be able to do that in Kerbal, where you're trying to mass is everything in a launch. The more you can diminish mass,
It's nominal. 200 seconds remaining.
the
Altitude is
better
190
efficiency and
kilometers.
thrust to weight ratio you can get.
Sorry, 2.8 kilometers per second.
That's just a matter of, it's. I honestly think that SpaceX has started to use Starlink to relay data for their launches, so that we've been getting really great camera, and I think they're relaying telemetry through Starlink now. I don't have any proof of that, and they've not said so, but I think that they're relaying data through it. There's the only reason it's been so clean. Like, this is a frozen image now. This isn't moving. That's not you guys. The clock is still rolling down below. You can still see the meter moving up on the left-hand side. The camera on board is probably done, though. But voltage and telemetry are nominal. That's just a camera issue. Or a receipt of data issue. Might not be the camera.
Stations on mission coord. Initiating the SAP response plan.
So as you can see, Electron is at 13,700 kilometers per hour, is 191 kilometers above the Earth's surface as we're waiting for battery hot swap.
Battery hot swap's a really cool thing. The only vehicle that does it. And what they're explaining is that the onboard engines, the Rutherford engine, what pumps the fuel into that reaction chamber, those are powered by batteries. And those batteries, there's not enough charge it's designed like this. So instead of carrying massive batteries, they carry two sets of smaller batteries. And as the first set is depleted, they actually can jettison them to reduce mass. It's a really innovative idea. It suits this vehicle very well because it's small already. Much larger vehicles are not going to be as concerned with shedding that amount of mass, but it's a cool concept for them.
However, we are still receiving good telemetry from Electron. So we're going to switch over to mission control, and we'll provide updates throughout the rest of the mission.
So they're going to go to telemetry from their mission control. Nope, they're just going to go to picture of mission control. What I find interesting is there's just as many computers and stations in that mission control for Rocketlab as there are out in Hawthorne for SpaceX. The photo we get from Hawthorne for their controllers is it's a little bit less crowded of a space, but it's just as many desks. So you are at... They don't have a clock running up. You have T plus 8 minutes, 19 seconds, and climbing as you get ready to go to kick stage separation. That will be the second stage separating from the last little booster pack that's going to get these guys where they're going to 500 kilometers circular. At that point, they said they will terminate their broadcast. We will have also been going for about 3 hours today, so we will probably call it a day after that point as well. So, we'll come over here as we continue to watch them up above us here. Yep. Live telemetry shows the rocket losing altitude. That's not good. So maybe we're going to hang out a little while longer till they confirm some stuff here. They are at kick stage separation in terms of their meter, but they're not talking. There may be a problem here. Keep your eyes on the reactions above me here from Mission Control. See what they're doing. No. We'll see though, Manny. I do not have a live telemetry. I'm relying on a source that is relaying that. And I've not had an update since the first mention at 1729 that there was a loss of altitude indicated on telemetry. Now that isn't the end of the world. If the rocket was still accelerating but losing relative altitude, that's not a bad thing. It's if you are losing altitude and losing velocity that it's a problem. Because that's just a function of apoapsis and periapsis. If they were past apoapsis, which I doubt, they would lose altitude while still accelerating. They're not showing it, Dustin. I'm interpreting it. We talk about elliptical orbits. So I said it's going to 500 kilometers circular. There's a lot of chatter going on in that room now. But in order to get a circular orbit, you actually have to fire twice. Yep, there may be a problem here. That would be tragic for Rocketlab. Let's go back to the big screen so you guys can see reactions in the room. They're well past kick stage. Let's see if I can get anything off Twitter for you guys. I was... Okay.
Stations on mission control.
This is Mission Control in Auckland. It appears we have lost our video feed for today's mission. Without these beautiful views from launch, we're going to end today's webcast here.
Yeah.
Stay tuned to social media for our updates. Thanks again.
They got a problem.
Another Electron mission.
Okay. So Michael Baylor is a next space. They got problem. There's a problem. Michael Baylor is a next spaceflight reporter. Rocketlab still has telemetry. And based on that data, it appears the second stage is not burning correctly. Now to Twitter, indeed. Battery hot swap was next. We never got confirmation that that happened, right? They never came on and said, successful battery hot swap. So if the engine stops performing, it could be very well that the fuel pump ceased operation and the battery didn't swap. And if that occurs, then you'd no longer get a hypergolic injection into the reaction chamber and there would no longer be thrust. Oof. I'm continuing to keep my eye on it. Yeah, they've pulled telemetry from the screen. They did that in the middle of the... They should have just been transparent with people. Don't be like that. So hang out. We'll see if we can get any more information as to what's going on. And this one just got a little bit more interesting than usual. It's a bad thing for Rocketlab for sure. They're a good company, and they were on a roll here. So there is a problem with the launch. See if I can get you guys any more information. I'm watching as many things as I can right now. We'll go ahead and take this guy down because you guys don't need to see that monitor anymore. And as we get more information, just hang out for a little while. It's now going to be a just chatting stream. There's been a Houston. We've had a problem incident with Rocketlab today. Bet you glad you all tuned in. We don't see this very often. Nothing else has popped yet. Don't need that one. Yeah, Rocketlab ends webcast just as it sounded like Mission Control was making an announcement. Yep. So Rocketlab ended the broadcast without providing an update on the outcome of the launch. Video was lost, telemetry was still on screen, and it looked like everything you would expect when a vehicle was flying without an engine burning. The timing with the engines is, with the battery swap, I really think is, because they probably have, I mean, okay, I say don't be like that, and that's me wanting transparency. I don't believe in obfuscating fact. But at the end of the day, they have, 3 customers here, and they have to inform them and protect themselves as much as they can from an insurance perspective. And that's probably where they are right now. They're going to have to reconcile with the fact that they just probably put 7 satellites in position to where no one can do anything with them. Without an engine, what I imagine the only thing they could do is separate it if they still have control, use the kick stage to circularize where they are, and then hope another provider can do something for the purposes of recovery. But you're talking about probably a crewed mission to do that. And that's not likely. I don't know where they'll go with it, but if the engine was not firing at the time frame, I don't think it's even SpaceX, Manny. SpaceX doesn't, I mean, they can put people up there, but they don't train astronauts. NASA does. I really think it was the fuel pump. I'm just guessing, but it's an educated guess based on where they were in the staging in the processing of the second stage. Nero, welcome in. You came in on us with experiencing probably our first live problem with a rocket launch. The Electron from Rocketlab, the Pics didn't happen mission, and apparently that's aptly named today. Yeah, the second stage fired, and then telemetry on screen started to indicate a loss of altitude. And I'm looking at several experts talking through the data that they know about, and they are saying that it looks as if the engine ceased to function during second stage burn, and it occurred. Where did I get the live telemetry from? It was on the screen. It was actually in the upper corner of the screen. I was covering it, and I moved myself out of that position. We can actually go back and see where we were in that broadcast. Let's do that. Let's have a look at where that telemetry was here, because they'll still, unless they've pulled the video down, which I doubt. Let's see if I can get Pics didn't happen to come back up here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there we go. So here's your telemetry up here, right? So right now it's at 11,900 kilometers per hour, an altitude of 179.1, and they are past fairing SEP, but they were more up here. So let's have a look at where we are as we climb higher in the replay. I'll make this full screen for you guys. So as we climb higher, 13,000, and they cut away right there, right? 13,856, and it was still climbing at that point. But they said, we lost our camera feed, so we're going to take you back to mission control. That altitude is still, no, look at it, it's dropping. The speed is that altitude right there. Let's go back and look at it again. They decided to cut away 193.1 kilometers. The speed drop. It's losing speed. That's not good. So as we move forward here, that speed is 13,669 at 194. It's got speed back here. It's 13,719 at 189. Now, the way, again, that orbit works is if they're past their apoapsis, which I doubt, that altitude drops okay with the speed going up. It's the speed dropping that's a problem. Now, if the speed went down and came back up, that's indicative that they have an engine issue. She's still falling right there, right? 187, 186. Speeds at 13,748 and climbing still. But your altitude's continuing to drop. And that happened. Let's go back a little bit. So she's still climbing at altitude right here.
The pumps on the Rutherford engine are powered
And they're
by
talking about the
batteries.
fuel
Once these
pumps.
have been depleted, we swap power over to a new battery, allowing us to save mass on the way to orbit.
187, 188. Let's check that moment where that starts to fall back off in altitude, because they're talking about it right around the point.
Guidance is nominal. 200 seconds remaining. Altitude is 190 kilometers and speed is 3.8 kilometers per second.
They were not alarmed yet.
HV battery discharge nominal.
There's your battery discharge nominal call at 193. She's still climbing because there's probably still fuel in the pumps, or probably still fuel in the reaction chamber. But 194.7, look at that altitude slow down. That gain rate on altitude is just dying. Something electrically happened right after that battery swap out. There's your drop in altitude right there. It had to have been that battery swap that went bad. We just talked about, hey, it's a really cool feature of the rocket. I bet you it's a gone feature from the rocket.
Okay, all stations on mission cord. Initiating the SAP response plan.
Initiating response plan was a call there.
So as you can see,
and they pulled away right after he said that. Okay.
Is 190.
So, speed, the altitude drop right after the battery swap, which they said was nominal. They said that, and I'm guessing that means that they were mechanically nominal, but there would be residual fuel still pumped into the reaction chamber from the first set of batteries. At some point, that engine was no longer producing thrust at the level it's supposed to. And you can see that altitude start to fall off. We were so busy just, what's going on? We didn't even notice it. But that, if I had money to bet on it, I would bet money that they had a problem with the battery swap out and electrically something went wrong. We'll get him off the screen right there. Let's see if any more information comes in. Nothing coming in on Twitter. Electron second station, yep. So, let's see. Telemetry display on rocket's webcast showing Electron's velocity and altitude indicate the vehicle stopped accelerating at T plus 5 minutes 41 seconds. At the same time, a live video feed from the upper stage froze. That lines up with electrical problem at T plus 5 minutes 41 seconds. Is it going to come back in? Well, if it was coming back down in terms of its altitude, so we can use Kerbal to illustrate this if we wanted to. The way that orbits happen is you know what? Let's do MS Paint again. You guys seemed to like that the other day. So let's draw the Earth here, right? Let's just say this is the curvature of the Earth. No, it's definitely not. It still has to accelerate to stabilize its orbit, right? So here's the Earth as well. Really bad circle of the Earth. When a rocket takes off, it establishes a high point of an arc, of a parabolic arc. And this right here, this point, would be called the apoapsis, or in Earth terms, apogee, right? So when that rocket takes off from Earth, it establishes that apoapsis, but that is not an orbit. Look, man, I'm explaining it as best I can with MS Paint. I don't have the tools. What happens when you get to, or you get near apoapsis or apogee, when you're basically at this point of this orbit, you want to fire the rocket pointing that way. You want the engine pointing that way so that you can expand this circle, this ellipse, from that to this, so that you're in an orbit. That orbit won't be circular at that point because you have another point on the other side called periapsis or perigee. When you are at perigee, you do the same thing. You fire the rocket, the engine, in this direction, and that circularizes the orbit. They weren't here yet. What they had happen is they launched their rocket, and before they were in a position, they're falling back down to Earth. Does that make sense, though? They didn't have enough velocity. They could not outfall the Earth's gravity pull. So they're going to get pulled back down. It's going to burn up. Those payloads are gone. See, the initial rocket burn is to establish this, is establish that periapsis. You have to have a periapsis high enough that when you get there and you fire that additional thrust to establish the width of your orbit, and they just never got there. They lost their engine before they got there. Omega, as you progress in KSP and you understand what apoapsis and periapsis is, you're going to remember this launch. But that is it in a nutshell. I'll see if I can find you a better picture from Kerbal real quick, because there's people that will have this.
1 kilometers above the Earth's surface.
Those are the payloads lost today, by the way. Those guys are burning up right now. Not to be too grim about it, but APO, APSIS, KSP, so we can find you a good picture of it. Yeah, so here we go. Nope, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. Yeah, so here's a good shot of it. This photo right here. Open image in new tab. Let's have a look here. So as you approach, as this capsule, this craft in Kerbal approaches apoapsis, that high point, you can see that arc isn't taking it very far at all. They would have to, one, that apoapsis is way too low. 25,000 meters is way too, or 25,000 meters in terms of KSP. No, that's actually fine in KSP. Once you get probably to about this point in the arc, you need to fire your engine this direction. You want thrust to go this way, so that arc gets wider and establishes its width to be wider than the body you are in orbit of. They just never got there. They never got there. Kerbal is absolutely an amazing game. I'm happy KSP2 is being built. It's a great teaching tool, as you can see right now. We could actually just launch a rocket in Kerbal. We could show you how this works. I can autopilot one and show you how all this works. Give me a moment. We'll do that. It's a great teaching opportunity, or great, I guess, learning opportunity. I don't want to be sitting here like I'm some sort of professor. So we'll launch this up. We'll get you over here. We will get you set to be on this guy. That's not what I wanted, sorry. There we go. Get paint out of here and close some of these other windows down. Still keeping my eye on what's going on from a perspective of the mission. They're not reporting anything else. KSP launch? She did launch. She's one of those apps that hates being minimized, though. And it also takes a minute to take off. Still nothing new. Bob is totally gonna... Bob's not a pilot, Omega. Rocketlab announced it on Twitter. All right, thank you, Dustin. Let's head over there and see what they're saying. We've lost the flight late into the mission. I'm incredibly sorry that we failed to deliver our customer satellites today. Rest assured we will find the issue, correct it, and be back on the pad soon. That is from Peter Beck. He is the CEO of Rocketlab. And then from Rocketlab themselves, an issue was experienced today during Rocketlab's launch that caused a loss of the vehicle. We are deeply sorry to the customers on board Electron. The issue occurred late in the flight of the second stage burn. More information will be provided as it becomes available. So I will post that information as it becomes available onto the Mission Control channel in Outlaws Discord. But we'll fire this up real quick and show you what I mean in terms of apoapsis. So we'll just do a quick orbit so you guys can understand what failed today. And so you can ask questions. I will autopilot this just for the sake of, things happening. Yeah, it's going to take a minute to load. So it will take a minute to load. I'm getting out the pen and paper for this one. This will take a minute to load. So this is a good opportunity as well to get a drink, stand up. We will explore where mathematically this failed for them today, why the engine cutoff was a problem. But we'll be right back. You guys get a drink, go to the bathroom, stretch your legs, and we'll talk about apoapsis and periapsis real quick in establishing an orbit. I'll be right back.
Remember to clonk that follow button.
Thank you. Need to fix that so it unmutes every time I go to this scene. So I'm back. I had to lose the flight suit. It's warm. And we'll talk about what happened today. So I'm just going to autopilot this. I believe in autopiloting in KSP simply because no one flies rockets by hand anymore. I'm going to load up a vehicle I know flies. Go with this boy. It's just a single stage, or not a single stage, it's a dual stage rocket. Actually has 4 liquid fuel engines and a main engine. And we'll go to launch pad with you. Tell that to Bob. Can't tell that to Bob. You have to achieve in the science path the ability to launch with the mod. Like I would use a mod called MechJeb for autopiloting, but you can't just start the game in autopilot. You have to get to this point. So one of the things I think is cool is you'll notice the BOSA flag here in the background. We're not going in that to 250 kilometers. We're going to go to, let's go to 100 kilometers at an orbital inclination of 0. So we're going to go equatorial here. And we will engage the autopilot. Hopefully this thing doesn't blow up on the pad here. It's been a while since I flew this rocket. We're going to show you from the map what's going on. I'm going to let this thing auto stage. So autopilot's engaged. We will launch in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, you know what? We screwed up. We didn't have the clamp done right. Right, I had this thing on a stand. Revert flight to launch. I'll show you exactly what I did wrong there. This guy needs to be down here. He fires with those 4 engines. Let's try it again, eh? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you can see that AP marker right here is my apoapsis. You also see this number over here is my apoapsis increasing. I'm chasing 90 degrees, staying just ahead of my prograde. My apoapsis is now 10,000 meters, is nowhere near high enough. And she continues to arc, and that's the arc I'm talking about. There's my payload right there. That's my rocket. That's the apoapsis relative to Kerbin, and that's what they're doing during their launch. They're building this arc. My height is 17,000 meters. Still building my apoapsis. A great way to see this is to zoom in from the back here. Now at 55,000, 60,000 meters apoapsis going to 100 kilometers apoapsis. So it's still getting bigger. And I just throttled down to fine-tune my apoapsis. Fine-tuning that value now to 100 kilometers or 100,000 meters. And here we are, we're coasting, right? We're in space and we're coasting. I'm going to let RCS take over here to put us in position. I have RCS engines on the front stage here to help me push around. So that apoapsis is no longer increasing. This is where Electron was today. They were coasting or burning up to their apoapsis. And now I'm maneuvering around to my maneuver here. It's a 13-second burn, burning 814 meters per second of delta V. You can see my satellite actually deployed its communications antenna. And that will happen, it's speeding itself up on auto warp now. But here we come in on the apoapsis node that we're going to accelerate against. And watch the arc. This right here, this, you'll see the blue line start to match this line. That was my staging. They never got to this point. Their engine failed before this point. So they were never able to circularize that orbit like I just did. Without being able to burn at the apoapsis, you can now see the apoapsis shifted because we're circularizing that orbit, and there's my periapsis. Roughly the same, not perfectly circular, but pretty circular. You'll see that orbit goes all the way around nice and pretty now. They never got there. Their engine failed before that the apoapsis burn. Omega says, this is far beyond my abilities to heal. One of the things you have to worry about, Omega, early in the game is you see I have satellites in orbit. Like that one is a satellite, which I'll actually probably deorbit. These are helping me do communication relays. But anyway, that's what failed. They never got to the point where they got to that apoapsis burn. They could never get their apoapsis high enough and then produce enough thrust against their high point in order to create an actual stable orbit. They never got there. Hopefully that makes sense doing it this way. I know I kind of talked through it fast, but that's what they failed to achieve today. They got that initial arc started. They never got the circularization portion of it done. So therefore they could never kickstage themselves to 500 kilometers. That's what failed. Now, what mechanically failed is a whole different conversation. And I think we need to talk about what actually happened from the perspective of, we started talking about camera jitter during the first stage, right? We said, what's that thing? What's going on the fuselage of the rocket? We were pointing at a couple things. The camera was stuttering. That camera was electrically mounted on the second stage. So I really feel like there was some sort of electrical problem already present, that it was somehow the first stage was helping to compensate for through crossfeed. But once that first stage was gone, I remember Rocket said the camera is stuttering again, and that was before they did the battery change out, and the battery change out was the end of things. So, first for everybody, I doubt they sell that mission patch. I would be shocked. SpaceX never sells the patches for their failures. I doubt they sell that patch. But we will talk about this launch from a BOSA perspective. The Brodown, also known as NIM. We will talk about this launch for some time in our own history. We don't see a failure that often. Things went not so good. No spark. We can go back to replaying it again if you guys want to see what happened. I'll bring up that again, and I'll shift the screen over to this. Actually, you know what? I'll just bring it over here. So monkeying around with that. Let me get out of KSP real quick. I'll show that again. Thank you. And then we'll bring up the launch here. So it's interesting because usually launch is like, oh yeah, they got that thing in orbit and we're done. That is not what happened today. We had a successful S1 light at the pad. And let's see. I might have lost it when I left the tab. Rocketlab. Maybe I have it over here still. That is not the tab I wanted. I will find the launch video. I know that I still have it on a tab somewhere. I've got so many windows open right now. That might be our guy. Let's open you here. Okay. So let's see. Yeah, here we go.
Stage 1 ignite. And 500 is the number of kilometers above the Earth.
Let's come back over here.
Targeting for a circular orbit.
So we got the strong back pullback, and we are at T-minus 2 minutes, 16 seconds here. Let's fast forward a little bit more. 44 seconds.
Flow engine perch enabled.
So there's your liftoff. And everything was kind of golden. I'm going to turn that down, because we don't need that to be that loud now. So, speed climbing. Traumatized for no reason. Altitude climbing. S1 looked good, right? And then we started talking about here. I started noticing this right before I called out the other thing. There was condensation on the fuselage of what looked like liquid oxygen, and I was like, uh-oh, but sometimes that's not that big of a deal. You could see it freezing as it came out of the vehicle. But there was something else that started to happen, and I'm not sure where it was exactly. There it is. So right around here,
entering stage 1 burnout detect mode.
Stage 1 burnout detect starts. And watch this little flap. There it is. You see that rolling on the fuselage right there? What is that? That's on the S1 still. And there's something else burning up high. Let's back that up.
Coming.
Entering.
So there's, yeah, you see these particulates coming off? Right here. There are pieces coming off the rocket from above the camera on the second stage. Now, is that propellant? Is that electrical arcing? I don't know, but there's something not normal happening above this camera position. This camera position is on the S2, and this Boeing right here is on the S1. Now, we were like, oh man, what's that during the launch? We're like, uh-oh, something's not right. They're still gaining speed, and they're still gaining altitude. And there's your S1. And there was that, oh, did you see it? That little hitch in the camera as the S1 pulled away. And now they're on the S2 camera above the rocket, and that's the engine. That engine fired. This is the engine that's problematic. This engine fired.
Electron is continuing on nominally. You can see the nozzle on
And then we got to about, yeah, they cut away here. So we're still here. It's at 13,677 kilometers per hour, and that's still increasing slowly. And it's at 192 kilometers and lowering. The altitude's going down. And they cut away at that point. So we'll back it up a little bit more. Still gaining altitude at this point. Speed's decreasing. And this is frozen. This camera is frozen electrically. And I was like, maybe it's an issue with the relay. I really think it stopped transmitting images at this point. 194.8. And it's like it's holding there. The clock is still rolling down below. So this isn't a still frozen video. And there he goes. That was their apoapsis of their arc right there. 194.8 kilometers was as high as the rocket got. It died mid-launch. Now, 100 kilometers, we talk about the Kármán line. That is straight up altitude to get to, quote, space. That's not high enough to stay in orbit.
So as you can see, Electron is at 13,700 kilometers per hour, is 191.
So, yeah. They've now confirmed. I'll bring that over here real quick. I'll bring my Twitter over real fast. We'll talk about what happened. Planet had 5 Super Dove satellites aboard Rocketlab's Electron. In a statement, the company says, "We have full faith that Rocketlab will be able to bounce back from today's failure in no time. We look forward to flying on them again." Here's the moment in the video feed that the launch vehicle ended. Live telemetry appeared to show the rocket stopped accelerating. And then we are down here. Rocketlab reports loss of vehicle during today's launch. Electron rocket from New Zealand carrying, yep, 194.8, right where we said it on that second look, where it got to its apoapsis. Peter Beck, he's the CEO of Rocketlab. "We lost the flight late into the mission. Incredibly sorry we failed to deliver on our customer satellites today. Rest assured we will find the issue corrected and be back on the pad soon." It's a bummer, but you got to look at this from a different perspective. It was 7 imaging satellites, and that could have been a whole lot worse. Imagine if it was Perseverance's launch. Rocket failures happen. Frank Borman very famously stated that if you think that you can have a 0 failure rate in spaceflight or in any sort of, vehicle.
I'm going to step off the limb now.
Where's that coming from?
That's one small step for man.
Oh, someone played a card.
One giant leap for mankind.
So it sucks for Rocketlab for sure. Yeah, it was definitely you, Manny. I'll go look. It sucks for Rocketlab because they were on a roll. They're a good provider. They seem to have the right attitude about enabling space access for people, but it is what it is. I mean, it was interesting for us to go, uh-oh, as early as we did, and I think we all were like, oh, okay, that wasn't a problem. But I think when the final analysis is done here, that bubbling we saw in the fuselage that some of us pointed out during the launch, it's going to be a symptom of what was going on internally in the craft. So we'll see. I know that we will report back on this the next time we talk space, which will probably be the next launch. Let's have a look at that while we're talking about that as well. We need to start doing this at the end of every rocket stream too. So if we head over to Rocket Launch Live, that's bright. I'm sorry, but it's so that was their mission today. The next launch on the schedule is Long March 2D, which we're not going to be able to launch. That's Chinese Space Agency. Falcon 9, Starlink 10. Where's Starlink 9? June 13th. So Starlink 9 is actually behind Starlink 10 now. July 8th for Starlink 10. Looks to be our next opportunity. That's at 12:15 in the afternoon, though. So let's see what day of the week that is. July 8th. That's a Wednesday. I doubt I can stream that. So we'll watch this one on replay unless that shifts. And they've put it on 10:51. Interesting. That means they've taken Starlink 9 off of 10:51. I bet that's wrong. Can't watch that. Can't watch that. Then you have an Asus 2 on July 14th. That's going to be not confirmed. Falcon 9 Saocom 1B. That's later in the month. Ariane Space Galaxy 30. There you go. Atlas 5, July 30th, the day before my birthday. ULA, Perseverance Mars 2020. That's a big launch. That's a big deal. If you guys have never seen an Atlas 5 take off, don't miss that launch. That's going to be something to see. The Atlas 5 is a beautiful, beautiful vehicle to see fly. It's the most reliable rocket in the world. It's at Slick 41 at Cape Canaveral. Really, really cool. And then we have another Starlink launch. There are 3 Starlink launches, and the Asus 2 launch, and potentially the Saocom 1B launch. There are five SpaceX launches scheduled in July. Yeah, Atlas 5 has been flying for a while. Nothing about it's recoverable. And then you see August 17th for Vega, another Vega launch in August. I don't think these both go off. And then we're way down into who knows whaty land. Arky, you missed a rocket failure. At this point, I've recapped it twice, so I'm not going to recap it a third time. But the quick dirty of it is the second stage engine on the Electron rocket today failed mid-flight, caused the vehicle to not reach a stable orbital altitude, and I'm pretty sure those 7 satellites have burnt up. Yep. Telemetry was 194.8 meters or kilometers for apogee, and then the rocket started losing altitude. They've acknowledged they've lost the vehicle, so the VOD will be there if you want to walk through it. We did some Kerbal Space Program to explain what apoapsis is and how to establish orbits and things like that, but we're kind of wrapping things up here. But yeah, so the next opportunity we will probably have for a launch to watch together is not this one. I would imagine if the Asus 2 launch is in the afternoon or evening, we'll watch that one. I will make Atlas 5 for Perseverance happen if I have to take time off of work. That is a big enough deal for me. That is the day before my birthday as well, so I might be like, hey boss, I'm going to take off and be out of here because I don't want to, I want to miss a launch. So yeah, that's what's coming up. Spacewalks, I think there's still at least, I think there's 2, if not 4 more in July. So that's what we're looking at in the month of July. The big one is that Perseverance launch. That is a significant launch. What I would, like the rest, like today's launch was routine. The Starlink launch was relatively routine. But you don't see an individually unique mission like Perseverance come along as very often. So I will make a big deal of that launch. That date may move up as well. As I stated, Tori Bruno, the CEO of ULA, said that the problem that they found in the Centaur stage of the Atlas 5 vehicle was identified and fixed, and they think they can move their launch date back up, but I don't know. I don't know how that meshes with the Mars arrival window, so we'll see. But anyway, guys, been playing Dwarves in Space for a while, and we've been reevaluating what happened with this launch today for at least 40 minutes now. I think we'll let the experts at this point come out and say this is what happened or not. I think we have a good idea, though. I think the second stage battery changeover killed the vehicle electrically, and that they probably had an electrical issue that was visually identified earlier in the flight. Yep, nothing routine when launching things into space. Sad day for Electron. I really like that patch. Probably won't get it now. But anybody else have any more questions about what happened today? I'd be more than happy to sit here and answer them. I don't want to make anyone else who's sat through it a few times feel like they need to hang out or anything. I hate that feeling in streaming, like, oh, fix the streaming, I need to be there. No, we've covered it. You know, if you got other stuff you want to do, dinners, other streamers, go hang out with them. We're just going to wrap up questions as to, you just reinstalled Dwarves in Space. We're playing it earlier. I got through one mission. I know Manny has it. I know Dracodai has it, and Dustin just bought it. I will definitely want to co-op that game on PC. I had a lot of fun with it today. But anyway, no other questions? Perm, you're not here, but I'm wearing your t-shirt. All right, then we will call it a day. Thank you for being here. It was an interesting launch for sure. And I will likely not be back until Wednesday unless something pops up on the schedule like it did today. This was actually moved up, remember. This was moved up a day for Rocketlab, and I imagine they're going to evaluate that decision as well. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you for being here. Let's find someone to raid this group over onto. That guy is going to be talking Electron launch replay, and you guys have kind of done that to death. You know what? Let's go to... You know what? Disperse. There's no one really I want to raid. Gilly, I think, maybe streaming tonight. I'm not sure about that. He said maybe or not. Yeah, it was a good opportunity to learn some stuff together for sure. It definitely was a great chance to say, hey, what's an orbit and how do you get there and why was this one not an orbit? You know, it's not as simple as shooting it straight up in the air. All right, have a great afternoon and evening, everybody. Bummer for Rocketlab. We'll get some more information and share it with everybody as always in Mission Control channel when it becomes available. And I will. Oh, one other thing before we go. Look below you if you're on PC. There is in the About tab a schedule that is based off of a Google Calendar. I am keeping that synced with launch windows as well as my Darkest Dungeon stream. So if you ever want to know, is there a launch today that you might be able to watch, even if I'm not streaming it? But actually, no. The ones I'm streaming are in that calendar. So that is up to date. The one that is right below me in my About page. Make sure that you're giving that a look to keep track of when launches move onto the schedule. Because I moved that one there like 3 hours before it launched today when they shifted the schedule. So yeah, that's what I wanted to make sure I mentioned today and I didn't. Alright, that'll do it. You guys have a great afternoon. I will talk to you later. As always, thank you for your time. And have a great afternoon.